Drink with James, episode 47, take 2, unfortunately. The camera shit the bed and deleted my first question and intro, so I have to do it again. Which reminds me, you remember before there was like autosave on Microsoft Word? Any of y'all like born 1990 and beyond won't remember this, but there used to not be autosave. You used to actually have to physically save your documents. And I know everybody who was born like, 86 and before had the situation where like they wrote their paper, didn't save it, and the computer crashed and they lost like 3 pages and you had to rewrite it and it was never as good the second time. I'm hoping that's not the case. I'm hoping this is better than the first time we did it. So we're gonna go. First thing, before we do that, the conference is tomorrow. I know I've been talking about this a lot. I'm not gonna stop talking about it. Like next week, I'm probably just gonna be really excited talking about how awesome it was. But response has been amazing from this thing. We have people coming in from 14 states. We have some of like speakers that like don't generally speak at conferences talking. It's gonna be incredible. We're gonna keep doing these. What I'm wondering is 2 things. One, what city should we do it in next? Obviously LA is top of mind, but Chicago, Seattle, Atlanta, Miami, Austin, I don't know. Let us know what city you'd like to see the next conference in. And then would you prefer it on a weekend or a weekday? That was a question that we kind of had. We didn't know where to put it. So throw those 2 things in the comments. Oh yeah, and we've got some really cool things in the pipeline. One on the product side, and then a really fun project that's going to be launching on Wednesday. So you're going to, I don't even have to tell you what it is. You're going to see it Wednesday. We're going to try and essentially take over the internet. We'll see how that goes. Oh, right. And we're coming up on the 1-year anniversary of Drink with James. So ideas for what we should do there. I should probably have a cake or something. But we're trying to think of something special to do there. So any suggestions, throw them my way. And of course, keep the questions rolling. First of all, if I was an influencer, I think it makes sense to show up to an event early. A lot of times, the first 45 minutes of an event are pretty quiet. That means a few things. 1, easier for you to get FaceTime with the PR person. 2, that PR person is probably freaking out that people aren't going to show up. So it's nice to show up early just to be there and fill the room out a little bit. But you're going to get some personal FaceTime with the PR person before 50 other people show up and they're pulled in 100 different directions and they're having to introduce people to their boss and they're running around and they're getting photos and all this. So that is one thing. As far as taking photos, obviously you want to cover it on, Insta Stories and Snapchat. It's similar to the video we did about influencer trips. Tim will throw up a link if you haven't seen it, 10 tips to slay your next influencer trip. You have to understand what is this event for and cover that. If it's launching a new shoe line, you should probably, cover the shoes in some way. If it is, just about a new store, then give a little tour of the store. Do, whatever it is that they're promoting, since at least on your Insta Stories and Snapchat, cover those things, speak to them, tag the brand. So, when they look the next day, they're going through all the tags that they have, they see that and they see that you kind of covered all those things and hit the points that they were looking to hit. So that's really important. I know as you grow, you're less and less likely to post a photo at an event. That's totally fine. Not many brands are expecting posts after events. If you're up and coming, I think that you should be posting photos at events. Again, these brands spend a lot of money putting these events on, and it's nice to see posts come through afterwards. So if you're on the up and up and you want to build a relationship with them, definitely post. Now, the other thing is you want to create a opening for you to continue the conversation with that brand person. So when you're talking to them, try and steer the conversation to a place where you think you can send them an email with information the following day. Of course, you're going to send them your post that you did on Instagram or your blog post roundup, whatever it might be. But if you talk to them and you say, oh, are you traveling anytime soon? And they say, yeah, I'm going to LA. I don't care if you've never been to LA, be like, oh my God, I know the best taco place you absolutely have to go to. I'll email you in the morning. And they'll be like, oh my God, thank you so much. I've never been to LA. I'm so excited. So again, you don't have to have been to LA. You can then just go home, look online, find the best fucking taco place in LA, email them and be like, this is the place I was talking about. So great to finally meet you. Also, here's a post I did, and I did a little tour on my Insta stories if you check it out. Again, hope we get to work together soon. Bye. Okay, so you have differentiated yourself by, they might have 50 conversations that night, but only one of them mentioned tacos in LA. So you are following up on that and you're saying, hey, I was that conversation. Remember me? I'm here. Then you have sent them a link to the post that you did and maybe highlighted the fact that if they haven't looked at your Insta stories, they should because you did a little tour of the store or whatever it might be. So do that. You'll kind of cement yourself in the mind of that PR person a little bit deeper. So then when you reach out 4 weeks later, forever it might be, they're going to remember you. Hey, again, sorry. Going back to the taco thing, like email them 4 weeks later because you want to see what's going on, you want to work with them, whatever. You say, hey, how was the place? Did you get tacos at that spot? Also, I saw this new bag you guys have. I would love to shoot it on my trip to Hawaii next week. You're almost forcing intimacy, right? By creating this connection of like, oh, I told you to go to this place, or I mentioned this, or I sent you this movie that you needed to watch. It does, whatever you can kind of suggest to them, then you get to follow up with that, and that can be kind of your thing. And again, they get so many emails, so it can be hard to remember a person, but sometimes it's easier to remember a conversation. So it's like, oh, that's the woman I had a conversation about tacos in LA with. So they kind of you mention that in the first 2 or 3 times you reach out, then it becomes easier to remember you. I think the question is focusing too tightly on a niche going to slow my growth? And the answer, I guess, is it depends. We talk a lot about consistency and differentiation on this show, and I think it is really important to focus on both of those things. And some niches are larger than others. Like I follow Chris Burkhardt, and I follow a lot of like adventure Instagram photographer guys because I think they do incredible work. But the appetite for adventure landscape photography is massive, and that's why he and many of his contemporaries can have millions of followers posting just one thing. He has a wife and he has a child and he does a lot of different things, but all he posts is that kind of photography, and the appetite for that is huge. Now, the appetite in smaller niches is understandably smaller. So I'm a cyclist, right? And I think if I focused my content and just did bike photos, my personal Instagram account would grow a lot faster than it is now. And because cyclists are interested in just cycling imagery, and I could really tap into that market. Now, I think the ceiling on cycling photography is probably about 100K, so I'd probably never be able to grow beyond that. But a niche can be helpful. And I think if you aren't just an incredible photographer or something of that nature, I think having a niche can help you gain followers a little bit faster than otherwise. So I don't think it's a bad thing, and I think that you can always start to break out of your niche a little bit. I think if you are doing a mediocre job of talking about 10 different things, or you can do a really good job of talking about one thing, I would focus on that one thing. If you're going to focus on a niche, or if you're from a secondary market, I think you do need to change the expectation of where you're going to go and where you're going to grow to. I think that's natural. I think we've talked about it before, that like we look for influencers across the country all the time, right? And so somebody says like, we need someone from Atlanta. Well, in Atlanta, 50K is a big following, right? In New York, 50K is a small following. So I think that if you're just looking at gross numbers, if you're just looking at gross numbers and following, you do yourself a little bit of a disservice, because you need to look at where you are relative to the top. And we've talked about this before. If you're a female influencer and you live in LA and you wear cut-off jean shorts and go to Coachella and you have 25,000 followers, that doesn't mean shit in that world. because there are people with millions and millions and millions of followers doing the same thing. If you are, I'm trying to think of something that's not offensive, which is hard for me. If you live in, Bloomington, Indiana, and you are, talking about fashion that can be kind of worn to the office and like working women type looks, and you have 25,000 followers, that's probably huge, for Indiana and for the Midwest and for that specific niche. That is probably a really big following. And so it's just understanding where you are in comparison of where the top is and being able to talk to brands about that. Hey, I know I only have 50,000 followers, but in blank world that I operate in, that's huge. And I'm one of the most respected people, and that's why are you trying to reach this group of people? You should talk to me. I'll tell a quick story that I don't know if Tim will put in or not. My mother, who is very active in the YouTube comments, hi mom, she is going on this cross-country road trip for her 60th birthday with her high school best friend. And she's reaching out to brands, being like, yo, I'm a 60-year-old woman. I know about social media. I care about brands and looking good and all this. And if I think she was reaching out to Yeti coolers. Like, hey, Yeti, you've got like hunting bros on lockdown. But if you want to like reach another audience, like I have a way for you to potentially do that. She has a tiny following, but she can speak to that little bit older mom, a little bit older lady crowd in a way that makes sense. So it's just understanding your value and being able to communicate that. So if you find a PR person on Instagram, slide into their DMs, sleep on their fire escape, you do whatever you need to do to get their attention. I think that persistence is an underrated value. Is that what the word I'm looking for? Value? Underrated trait?
Yeah, characteristic.
Yeah. Persistence is an underrated personality trait and characteristic. Personality trait? Attribute? Oh. It's kind of weird. Okay.
Skill to have? Skill? Persistence is
Okay, here we go. Persistent.
I'm moving all this in, by the way.
Obviously. Persistence gets a bad rap. People think of I don't want to hound the person. Again, we call our salespeople junkyard dogs because that's how I expect them to act. And I really do think that until you get a no, that you're not being annoying. If you get a no and you continue to hound somebody, then you start to get annoying, right? If they politely say, thanks so much, we'll keep you in mind, maybe let it go. Or not interested, thanks for reaching out, let it go. But beyond that, I think persistence is a beautiful thing. And I think that, doing ththings creatively to set yourself apart is what you have to do. The market is so saturated, and we see this again. We're hiring all the time here at Fohr, and there are applicants that do things to set themselves apart. One person sent like a box of stuff from London that she loved. She was from London looking to move to New York, and at least I took the interview. Because I was like, hey, if you are clever enough to come up with something like this and send it through, you obviously care about this company, you really want this job, and you wanted to make a statement and get my attention, and you got my attention. And if I'm hiring for a salesperson, it's like, that's what I need. I need somebody that can get someone's attention. So I am, it is in my best interest to talk to that person. But I think as far as an influencer, it just shows that if you really want to work with a brand and you're chasing that PR person because you love the brand and you want to work with them, not because you're trying to get paid, I think that's going to come across. And you being passionate about that brand is something that you guys have in common, right? A PR person for a brand should love that brand. They should be the physical embodiment of that brand. And so you're coming to them being like, I also love that brand, and here are all the things I want to do to tell the fucking world how great this brand is. Y'all should be able to connect on that. And so I think that, reaching out to that person personally doesn't cross the line at all. Don't actually show up at their apartment and sleep on their fire escape. That was a joke.
How many DMs have you sent to you guys?
Look, kids, back when I was in the hustle, the DMs didn't really exist. I couldn't slide into DMs. I slid into a lot of inboxes unannounced. But now I still, if I find someone interesting that I think should be a Fohr card client, I reach out on DM all the time and say, hey, I run this company. I think it's pretty fucking cool. I think your company's cool. I'd love to talk to you about how we might be able to help you achieve your goals. I don't always get a response, but it's always worth trying. Who cares? What the fuck's worse gonna happen? They're gonna be annoyed? Well, who cares? It doesn't matter. You're just out there trying to do you, and if somebody is going to judge you for working really hard to get an opportunity that you're passionate about, then you just throw the middle fingers up to that person and walk away. That's it. I'm done. Tomorrow's the conference. Tim and I are going to be exhausted. We're opening the whiskey bottles at 3 o'clock. And we hope to see you guys there. Peace.